Welcome again to the Crash Chords podcast. Yes, my paper made noise and Steve is glaring at me. You're not intimidating. You're about as intimidating as a pug puppy.
Well, no one knows how I look, so they'll just
That's
get a
not
sound,
true. We have a website with a photo of you.
And now there's just papers just wiggling around everywhere. This is so professional, isn't it?
This is anarchy.
This is anarchy. Yes.
This is anarchy?
It's going to
I
the...
thought
This is the extent of anarchy.
I thought this was Sparta.
No, this is not Sparta.
Oh.
Sparta is a location in Greece. Anarchy can be anywhere.
Yeah, you're confusing place with ideology.
There you go.
That's it.
It's separate.
I like that one.
It's not like a one. That's just what he did. That's not like a thing at all.
What you said, I like that.
It was applicable in that situation.
I like that. No, but I liked what you said.
Thank you.
It was quite informative.
I do what I can here.
Okay.
God knows it's very needed.
You should really try harder.
We're back with another podcast another week. I have a few announcements. The first big one is the last Monday of, well, technically when it comes out, the last Wednesday of February, we will have a guest on the podcast. We will continue our campaign to have the Wasties in their individual talent on. We had Painless Parker. Now we're going to have Sarah Biz of the Wasties on as our final guest of our next guest and our final podcast of February.
Between you now and John last week, people know exactly when we record. Like day and time, everything. We are completely out there in the open right now.
So what?
I'm telling you, they could kill us. They could come after us. They know where we are when we say these things that we say.
No, they know
when
what we are doing at a specific time. They have no idea of location.
We've mentioned New York.
Okay, no, you're right. They know when we are, but you'll screw up somehow.
And
next
give
week.
out his
2
home
weeks.
address?
We're already like 2/3 of the way
I like how it's
there.
me. I'm the one who's going to screw up, not Steve. He's infallible.
No, that means that I only have.
I've already proven
all
that.
that's left is your address. If I blurt that out, they're coming after you, buddy.
Actually, technically, my parents, because I'm barely here.
Oh, well.
And you don't know Sarah's.
You're really paranoid. You're both
parents
really...
are cool. So
Anyway, you have other announcements?
Yes. This Sunday, which I believe is February 9th, I'm going to see Schaefer the Dark Lord and Adam Warrock at Fifth Estate in Brooklyn. Tickets are selling out quick, but if you don't have tickets, you should go. It's going to be a great show.
If you like to laugh, you want to go.
I'm hoping to be able to write write a review, that's the word, about the show afterwards. So look for that in the coming weeks. There was another thing, but of course now I've forgotten because of all the diatribes that we went on.
I like that. That's a good one. I like that word.
It's the first big word you've pulled on us in a while. I'm proud. I really am. Like a proud father.
And yet still condescending, too.
Still condescending, Steve, at the ready.
That's baseline.
Anyway.
That word was not applicable.
No, it was
Words.
not. That is sure. Oh, another thing I do want to promote is coming up in February, towards the end of February and then early March. I've started doing sound for a second burlesque troupe called Raw Burlesque, hosted by Danger Doll and Stella Chu. Our next show is the 16th of February, so in 2 weeks you should come out and see it. It's in Manhattan.
You have another burlesque troupe?
Multiple, yeah. I'm a sound guy, and you don't go to any of the shows, so what do you care?
Me. Oh, yeah. All right, well, you betrayed someone, so, I was empathizing. It's what I do.
You were
Or the
asshole
person that you might be offending from moving on to all these burlesque troupes, because...
But I didn't move on.
You
I'm
have
doing
to be
it for
leaving
both.
someone but, that's what they say when you have, like, a mistress. You're doing both. Is that good? I don't think so.
I kind of feel like I'm watching my parents fight right now.
I kind of feel like Steve and John switched brains all of a sudden.
This is awesome.
We have a machine.
Except for the whole childhood fighting thing. Yeah, that's
Right.
not awesome. But watching you two bicker like old biddies
Yes,
is awesome.
we do not condone domestic violence or argumentation.
Oh.
Well, we don't.
Thanks.
Anyway,
I'm going to just take us into our album for the week that I chose because I'm getting scared. So this week's album is the latest from The Lonely Island called the Wack Album. The Lonely Island consists of, if you don't know, if you've been under a rock for the last, 5 years or 6 years.
Or you just don't watch Saturday Night Live.
It's Andy Samberg, Akiva Schaffer, and Jorma Taccone are the three artists who do the rapping, the writing. They got their start in Saturday Night Live, and one thing I kind of want to bring up is the defining moment when I discovered this band was watching Saturday Night Live, and suddenly I see Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake dressed in suits, like 90s R&B stars, singing about putting their dick in a box. And I was like, okay, this is different.
This is circa what year?
The early mid-2000s is when the first record came out. I believe that first album came out...
Seems like a decade ago. Oh, wait.
Actually, no, it was
Wait,
only 2009. Incredibad
really?
came out in 2009.
Yeah, it's a lot more recently than I thought.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was my first experience. Between that and I'm on a Boat was my first real experience with them. They were digital shorts for Saturday Night Live. And it taught me that Justin Timberlake has a sense of humor and is actually a clever person. And B, there's more to than meets the eye to Andy Samberg.
Well, it was sort of this match made in heaven, because you combined an experienced comedian who has his own stylings, and he's just kind of a goofball, Andy Samberg, but that, it made him, he fit that particular SNL cast perfectly.
Yeah.
Because, I've been a little sour on SNL for the previous years, but Andy Samberg was kind of like, a light in the darkness.
The digital shorts were the only reason I still watched Saturday Night Live. It was for the stuff that later became the Lonely Island stuff.
Right, and then you combine him with Justin Timberlake, who is a veteran of the music industry, and it's sort of like you have two pros who are pros in their respective area. You smack them together, and you have this whole new thing. So...
And that song's not even speaking to the other two performers, Akiva and Jorm, who are featured in I'm on a Boat with T-Pain, which is the first sense you really get of the full breadth of Lonely Island. But it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, hey, this is rap, but it's not, and it's comedy. I mean, that's the baseline, it's
comedy first, but it's comedy that's based on music, because it has one thing that it's trying to really... make fun of, and that is that style of music, that particular area. Now, I'm going to put it out here that I appreciate what Lonely Island does, but don't jump down my throat here for being subversive or for being obvious. I don't think their shtick is necessarily high comedy, per se. They might be high while doing it, but who knows? It's not really at the top of, you were really trying to be totally subversive here in this particular area. It's fairly face value what they're trying to do. They have a one-track shtick.
Yeah, why would anyone jump down your throat on that? That's pretty much exactly what they do, and they admit to it.
Well, then that's the latter. I was being obvious. Okay, fair enough. All right, that's knowing where we stand here. But this is the thing. They do have a one-track shtick, and it's something they do very, very well. They're primarily making fun of influential pop artists, really ripping apart the tacky, the predictable, self-aggrandizing hip-hop, trance, and club music that's out there, and the silly crap that artists can themselves get away with in that circle. But for that reason, A Little Lonely Island goes a long way for me as a comedy duo, because it's just one shtick that they have, and every song kind of banks on that shtick in order to hit home. Sometimes they're really on point, and then other times they're just being kind of silly in a vague way that still challenges the medium they're making fun of. So I find that apart from those great moments, it can sometimes drag on an album scale. That said, I think it's very important what they do as comedians. If they make you think on just one level, it's that, very simply, pop can be really dumb. And if, through their satire, they make people realize that, that's just so awesome for them.
I am going to correct you now. I didn't want to while you were talking, but it's not a duo, it's a threesome. There's 3 members.
It's a trio.
Oh, did I say
threesome
duo?
You did say duo.
I didn't notice it.
I like saying threesome, though, and I feel like they'd like that, too, considering the compliment song that comes later in the album. But we'll get to that. So, the new album is appropriately titled The Wack Album. Clearly a not clever title, a very face value title, but they're saying, hey, we're whack, but here we are.
It's appropriate. Well, face value is appropriate. They kind of go hand in hand.
So the album starts with something that I really enjoyed and was very funny. It's titled Dramatic Intro, and it's exactly that. It's a faux epic intro of the rise and fall of Lonely Island before they get back into the studio. But it starts as your typical, here they are, unless you've been living under a rock, it's the Lonely Island, and it's talking about their music, and then...
And that's where I'm going to refute you, because it's not a rise and fall. It's a rise, and then a fall, and then there's another rise, and then there's another fall. And I believe at one point they were thought to be dead, but they weren't really, and there was some weird stuff going on.
Well, that was the second fall, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a prolonged second fall.
I'm glad you captured the arc of this very straightforward intro. But
it was awesome.
It was good for a chuckle.
This completely sums up that self-aggrandizing nature that I talked about before. I mean, again, this is all comedy first and foremost, so I'm not going to comment on the musical aspect for the intro here, because really this is just a stage setter. It can be whatever the hell they want it to be. In this particular case, it's just that really pump up and inflate the band's ego, because that's exactly what they're making fun of. They're making fun of bands and artists or hip-hop moguls that inflate their own ego. So that's it here, where everyone is following what they do. Oh, they came back. Oh, the band rejoined. Oh, the band, oh, they broke up again. Oh my god, it's in every single tabloid. Every little aspect of it, of their moves, are in every single tabloid.
But being Lonely Island, they can never even... They always have to go fantastical. They can never maintain a punchline of their joke without actually going into areas that are obviously completely blown out of proportions and outright lies. They can try to be serious, but then they are the first men to ever become pregnant and are elected president, and then are beating to death with their own penises.
And then their property is burned in effigy, and then all of the people who hated them come to defile their bodies, and then while they're defiling their bodies, they find out that they are still alive and get up and remove their fans from their various holes.
It's just a short track. They could just listen to it.
Ridiculous.
They could just listen to it. Don't even need to describe it. But I do happen to like, if we're going to pick this apart, I do happen to like the commentary that's based on the I like them because they speak for the people. And there's no way I'd let my kid listen to them. They're Satanists, and they should be boycotted. Like, that's perfect. Just the duality right there, of everything that every musician wants to be in the way of creating controversy of who cares what kind. It's just being in the public eye, and that's really it. That's the end of the joke.
Pretty much. It's a short track, about 30 seconds, and it's a strong intro for what they're setting up as far as the joke goes. It's
important for the final line. After an experience like this, God only knows what they will create. In Sue album.
Yes. One thing I want to say about The Lonely Island before we start getting into the music is that this is a band that, on the whole, never really steered me wrong. There were ups and downs on a song-to-song basis. More or less, I enjoy what they do. They're funny, and they get my attention, and they don't take themselves too seriously. That said, let's get into their first track, called Go Kindergarten, featuring Robin of 90s dance fame. I hadn't really heard anything from Robin recently, so it was kind of cool to see her come back for, of course, their first musical track on the album, which is simply a dance anthem through and through, but also taking shots at all dance anthems.
Well, this is a really, really clever take on the suggestibility of club music.
Yes.
As the video clearly shows. But how it's just written with these nonsensical commands, which is kind of a sick thing when you think about it, because in a club setting, inhibitions have obviously flown the coop anyway once you've taken to grinding on the stranger beside you. So once you just add ridiculous stuff like burn a school down, build a school, burn it down, fuck a house, eat a shoe, all because we told you to, it's really just milking the lack of inhibitions.
Yeah, some of it might seem strange, but don't think just obey. Let the music play, because we put it in a song, so do everything that we say. That sums up the entire concept of this song. Verse 3. Yeah. It's funny, because they start typical. Work it, twerk it, and then whip your dick out, and then punch your friend, punch your friend. Go stupid, get stupid, because we said to. Go dumb, eat garbage, we're going kindergarten.
Yeah, it's just do stuff. It's suggestibility. That's it. That's it right there.
Progressively worse and more esoteric and weird, and it really my favorite line.
Esoteric is not the word I use to describe some of these things. I mean, okay, yeah, I guess it's build a school, burn it down. I guess that's esoteric, because who would do both? But it's inane. That's it. It's making up things that are inane, because
Inane, not esoteric,
a lot of what you find two different things. But a lot of what you find in these songs, I'm trying to think back to. I think it was a Soulja Boy song called "Donk," and there was a line in there called "Go to Thailand, go to Thailand."
Yeah.
It was used as like a dance.
Yeah.
Like, stated, because there's always that like insert random name for dance that we just came up with for the purposes of this song right here.
Yeah.
And like, what depth does that have?
Exactly.
Well, the whole thing, the in the outro, the thing that really just, I love this line: "Go zombie, be brainless, here we are, entertain us." I just love that whole concept of these artists are using their fans to do things so that they get their own little entertainment out of everything they're given back.
The other thing is the choice of song title here, and the concept, we're going kindergarten, because who's more suggestible than kindergartners?
Yeah.
That's kind of perfect.
Your children.
And then on a music level,
Your
I mean,
children.
it's got
They'll
that
do what you
standard
do.
dance club beat and heaviness, which you're expecting, almost dubstep-like in its heaviness in certain parts. But what I really like is, I mean, the three guys of Lonely Island have okay to good singing voices. They're not virtuosos, but they have enjoyable singing voices, and their ability to rap is good. But I really enjoyed hearing Robin on this track. She has a beautiful singing voice and lends a nice heavenliness to the ridiculousness,
Well, even that in itself is almost like a little poke at the genre when you think about it. The fact that, we don't really need to be, super talented just to kind of fit in the genre. All you really need is a good idea. Now, I'm not saying, of course, you can be, like, obviously the better half of the genre would obviously be occupied by people who are exceptionally talented. But if you're just going to reduce it to its base components, in other words, fill a song with gibberish, as many artists do, then yeah, that's perfect grounds for a comedy album right there.
Yep. But I personally very much enjoyed hearing her sing, because again, the parts she sings are very beautiful. She has a beautiful singing voice, so which adds a nice parallel to the yelling commands in the verse.
Yeah, and as I said, they're the genres that they touch upon again are basically, you could mark it down to hip hop, trance, club music. So this particular track is more in that club trance vibe here.
Yep.
So that's, and I actually it's cut and paste,
Yeah.
But it's well done. It actually kind of does stick in your head after a while. I think
Yeah.
it was a strong intro.
Yes. Moving on to the third track of the record is a club track, a promiscuous club track about giving hugs. So this is a song featuring Pharrell Williams, who we've talked about at length
We've
on
had
the podcast.
no shortage of his little cameos.
He's a talented singer-songwriter, and he's featured here in this song that starts with a spoken intro between Andy Samberg playing a character and Yvonne Chivagowski, whose name I can never pronounce, from Chuck and from Mass Effect.
You're pretty good there.
Doing a little exchange of her calling up, asking to come over, and him going, well, I just hugged you. I hug everyone. Throwing it off and, then essentially kicking into a song about being promiscuous with hugs, which just saying that sentence is so ridiculous.
That's the clever one-dimensionality of this song. It's just, it's hilarious because it equates hugs to a one-night stand. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really it.
And it's not just, it goes that extra length to really explain how the hug is sex. But it's still just a hug.
Right.
She want a hug from behind, I did it. Then her friend jumped in, I'm with it. Like, come on. I mean, yeah, group hug. Awesome.
My favorite song is to hear Pharrell Williams at the end sing, bring Sharon and Susan, we could have a hug a trois. Turning a hug into,
actually,
that kind of a wordplay.
We could play. We could spend all day just marking upon, that line was funny, that line was funny.
Right.
In the end, that's kind of what the band is about, especially in terms of comedic humor. But my issue is I don't think they go too far with it sometimes. Not too far. I would prefer if they went a little bit farther, is my point. But there are some reprieves here. For instance, in the chorus, that is actually sung by Pharrell Williams.
Which is my favorite part.
It's the favorite part because you started to say this before, John, and we're going to get into this later, about pacing, how there's more to comedy than just kind of, hit after hit, joke after joke. That's ridiculous. At some point, you kind of need to have that greater meaning within the comedy. That's really what takes it to the next level for me. And there was a certain profundity in this chorus here, ultimately concluding with the line, "You can't hug a rolling stone." Like, that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it still goes back to the same joke. One night stands, well, I'm just rolling on. I'm going to go to the next girl, get another next girl, hug her. But you can't hug a rolling stone. That idea is, it's sung with such emotion.
Yeah.
You almost really want to believe it. Candor, exactly. You kind of sympathize for this. It almost ceases to be a joke at that point.
Yeah.
You feel...
Well, it really gets some meaning, but then it runs right into, you can't hug a rolling stone because it'll crush you.
Bringing it back to that literalness that's just ridiculous.
That's the literal... I mean, it's... I still want to say that particular line, I still want to say that's on the edge of the series.
It's very
No,
sweet.
absolutely. But the follow-up line about you can't
because
hug
that's
a
the
roll-
old line, don't get too close to me, babe, I'll hurt you. It's the same thing. Same concept right there.
Yeah, that's
if
true.
you just forget for a little bit that it's about hugs, which is about the most benign form of affection possible, then, there's a lot of profundity in this song. Just saying.
Yeah. No, you're definitely right. And it's also in the delivery with a lot of this stuff. And especially... Pharrell Williams is another performer who has a beautiful singing voice, and the way he delivers some of the lines, I mean, the line about it's just a big Game of Thrones, like, there's no point, like, it's just a thing to throw in a thing.
Well, that's another common thing for these guys and their work, but I do want to say this, considering how, the joke after joke thing can get a little tiring, I think sometimes their strength is when they go all or nothing, when they're either going to go toward the profound side or when they go toward the super ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I found that in one particular point here, which I just had to let out a complete girlish giggle because it was such a ridiculous string of words tacked onto each other. It went, "'Cause I get more hugs than a batch of puppy hugs, sitting on a fluffy rug, getting tickled, touched, and rubbed." That's just clever wordplay. That's just wordsmithing for the sake of it, and yet it's,
and that's a skill.
It induces giggling, and that to me, that's great. That's great comedy in music,
and that's a skill that they have and they've done before. And that line, that's one of those rapid fire hit after hit after hit that you just can't help but giggle to.
Yeah,
and
some are weaker, but that's an example of the strongest one. And I think that's where Lonely Island can be unique too, but unique within comedy music, I'd say, because they'll go that far. They don't need to keep it within a certain framework within their music. They will go all the way just for the sake of it. Which that's what SNL was known for doing back in the day. So maybe that's why Andy Samberg wound up in the job that he wound up in. I
mean, also with them, and you see it less and more in other tracks throughout the album, is it's either they commit to a joke so 100% that they push through the doubt, but sometimes they commit to the joke 100% and it falls flat and you're dragged down with it. And we see examples of both throughout the record. Yeah, but this track is perfect for that reason. It's actually it's literally on both ends of the spectrum. It's one of my favorite tracks for that reason. Yeah. Both ends of the spectrum simultaneously. It's beautiful, it's simple, and it's absurd. And I love that bounce right off each other. Yep. Now we move on to track 4, which is called Diaper Money, which is the audio MTV Cribs version of The Lonely Island. So the song is, in narrative at least, is the big joke is they're singing very gangster about everyday adult responsibilities. It's not. It goes even further than that, because the whole MTV Cribs gangsta lifestyle is extremely far-fetched. It's that extreme idea that I have a caddy and a Porsche and something that has, 7-figure costing and is gold-plated, and I have 13 bathrooms. I haven't even seen 3 of them. And I've got 18 bedrooms, and I've had sex in all of them. It's that kind of high-end, I have the world. But that's the I'm ballin', essentially. Yes, that's exactly what this song is. Diaper Money is realistic. It's about, the cash, but it's diaper money because you're going to spend it on the things you need. So it's about sex, which is wife pussy, because you should maintain yourself and be realistic. You're not going to get it anyway. This is grade A irony right here. I mean... And my favorite, it's the grave plot.
which is his future crib.
Oh, I'll get to that.
That's
I'll
my
get to
favorite.
that
We're
part.
jumping ahead. So it starts with, I believe, Akiva talking about diaper money and how he has to get this money to keep his babies in diapers so they don't get shit everywhere. The baseline. And it's just him sinking, what is it? I got papers and papers and papes all from my baby's mistakes. Like,
Just so my carpets and drapes don't get shit on them. I got that diaper money. I got that diaper money. Dude, I got that diaper money. I'm a grown-ass man. And that's where that irony really hits it, because no, the way he's singing it, you're not grown. But yeah, you know what? You're being a responsible adult, and I appreciate that. So your house don't stink. It's that duality that I really enjoy in this. The next one, where he's talking about the fact that he has sex with his wife, but, and the best part about it is no one else can have it. And I also can't have it unless she says I can. It's realistic, yes. Yes, your wife is going to deny you sex. It's all these issues you have as an adult that are really tropey in and of themselves.
I was going to say, I don't want to say it's necessarily realistic, but it's definitely tropey.
Yes, it's a trope within a trope within a gangsta rap.
Yes.
Which is just a couple of extra layers. I thoroughly laugh at this song every single time I listen to it.
Right, and then the third verse, of course, which is the one that Andy sings, is, or as he's called on this album, Young Sandwich, sings about his grave plot. And what's the ridiculous line? Wobbly wobbly drop into my grave plot?
Yeah. Wobbly wobbly drop it into my grave plot.
Let's just go back to this is like an old Disney movie that had that exact meter to it.
Yeah.
You afraid of death? Well, I'm afraid not, because I got the bomb spot right next to the highway. He goes on, grave plot. It even got... Geez, I'm getting confused here. I did it my way a very small % of the time. Got my coffin picked out, styrofoam painted like wood, tricked out. It even got handles to lower me smooth, and my tombstone only has minimum typos.
That's my absolute favorite part of this. Here, this is the thing. I had a neighbor named Dougie, and he recently passed away this week. But just as a little legacy to the amount of comedy that he did impart on my life, because he was definitely one of those characters. He was the type that would almost be the real-life embodiment of exactly what they're going for with this particular joke here, making the coffin into some kind of object of desire. Like, I got the best coffin. No, you don't even know. I have the best, the most tricked-out coffin imaginable. And just, the more and more you think about this, it's just the absurdity of that. The idea that you're still concerned about appearances or about what you have even after the point of death, and that's just, it's absurd. At the same time, it's hilarious, because that is when no one cares. That's when all materialism should simply just filter away. There's nothing left at that point. That's when materialism is absurd. And here, this particular track aggrandizes it. And regardless of what I said about my neighbor, I mean, that's the thing. He would occasionally broach that area where materialism was important. At the same time, it had the same comedic effect on me that he did as Lonely Island is having right now. In some ways more so, because I actually knew the man. I knew him for many, many years, and that's a lot of comedy that I took away from him.
But the great thing also about this specific verse is that it's ridiculous because, again, who cares about materialism at that stage? But on top of it, it's also a very mature thing, even though it's being handled immaturely. Right. The idea of planning for your future, having your tombstone, your grave plot, and your coffin picked out already at a young age is a plan for the future, which is a mature thing, but it's done so ridiculously.
Well, he even had lines that I recall that could have easily fit right in this song. He would say things like, "Oh no, they'll give you the polish for it." Like, I didn't ask necessarily whether you needed any polish, bro. Oh, you tell me, like, that comes with it? Oh, wow, man, that's a great deal. Did you get that Costco? It's in effect, that's really what he was talking about, a Costco coffin. Dougie stories. Anyway, it's...
Oh, is that a new bit? Dougie stories?
Oh, it could very well be a bit. I have many Dougie stories written down. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined equating it to a Lonely Island song, but it happened. Either way, I have one more comment about this track. It's a success to me, not just because of the content it's delivering, but also because of the music. This is very odd, but this is, apart from the gangster rap vibe that it has going on, it infuses so many elements here that makes it really, really hypnotic. Yeah. Like you're mesmerized with, wow, you got all that going for you?
Yeah.
The diaper money and all that, and so stuff. You got steel drums, for instance. That's very commonly used in that type of music. It is very strong bass that just it bellows almost like a bell toll. It's not really inherently musical, but it from an aesthetic perspective, it really, really fits that hypnotism that you're wrapped up in the materialist world. And again, great irony here. This is materialism in a whole nother direction.
And even musically, we talked about when we were listening, the layering of the altered, deeper voice of one of the performers under the normal voice gave it that extra bass level.
Yeah.
You know?
And the ending of each of the main verse sections with that deep voice all by itself.
Yeah.
With minimum typos. Just really cements that whole I'm a man kind of feel they're going for here.
It's got the machismo factor there, and it's almost a little bit metatextual if you think about the fact that it seems a little bit trapped with that hypnosis.
Yeah.
So it's like you're man enough to say all this because you're putting it out there that you're really balling with all this stuff going for you, and it seems trapped. Like, I got that diaper money. When have you ever heard a story about diaper money that ends positively? That's a man who really needs to restructure his life.
Let's jump to probably one of the most well-constructed songs on this record.
Probably one of the...
Definitely
no, strike that. My favorite song, and I'm willing to say the best song on the album.
It's definitely one of the best singles they've ever put out. So this is a song called YOLO. YOLO is a saying that became popular very recently, though taken from an older time. You only live once. It's featuring Adam Levine of Maroon 5 and Kendrick Lamar, a rapper. And it's... So, this song is...
May I?
Sure.
I would love to. Alright, this is about as multifaceted as they come. First you have to climb the ladder here. You gotta isolate the source of their satire. The exclamation, YOLO, which, unless you've been living under a rock, is the acronym for You Only Live Once. It would sound like a noble phrase, almost. Its origins are pretty noble because it inspires you to take risks in situations that call for it. Because that's usually how we accomplish great things as an individual. That's how we build legacies. And I believe... the origins of the quote actually goes well back to the 1700s, although it was most popularized by Mae West, interestingly enough. But that's the thing, it would be noble if it wasn't recently adopted by brain-dead idiots who simply invoke it just as an excuse to do something especially stupid or especially dangerous. And that's unfortunately the most pervasive use that it's had in pop culture, which sort of clouds its nobility. Now, what's amazing about this song is that it isn't pursuing either ideology. It's not about doing something risky because it's good, or it's not about doing something risky because it's bad. It's don't do it at all because you only live once. You only get one life to live. Why would you waste it? It's amazing how those same words, you only live once, can have those three different meanings at the same time. The fact that they went further with this to that third meaning was just downright brilliant to me.
The brilliant thing about this song for me is that you take a thing like you only live once. You take it so literally that since you only live once, you shouldn't do anything because you might die. But not only just take that message and sing about all the things you shouldn't do because something bad could happen, but then layer it over a track that's your standard pop, inspirational, take charge, get out there and live song.
It's the anthem, which there's also no shortage of today, and how everything has to be an anthem today.
So you take something that's sung in a style to get out and live, but be about staying in and not.
And this is coupled with Adam Levine doing the choruses beautifully. Like, I love his voice and the way he sings the choruses. And even though they're somewhat nonsensical, it's just so impactful and really emotional that you just want to listen to them. With lines like, you know that we're still young, so hold off the fun. Cook your meat till it's done, 'cause you only live once. This, between Andy, Jorm, and Kiv going back and forth, it's also got Kendrick Lamar, who does a bridge that's completely about your financial stability. And his song, he does it so matter-of-factually that you feel like he's trying to impart wisdom, and it really actually is wisdom.
It is. If you pay attention to this, you'll probably have a very fulfilled life.
But it's not hip-hop wisdom, rap wisdom, what you consider what they would want to import.
It's life wisdom.
It's actual important stuff you should listen to.
You should invest, but as long as it's low risk, that kind of thing.
Yes, make sure you get that 401k. Make sure it's low risk. Make sure that you get some real estate.
I even want to go
4.2%. That's a good deal.
It was a really great middle segment. It was easily the climax of the song because it reduces these lyrics, which still sort of fit that anthem framework. You could almost take them as easily as you could take the words from Go Kindergarten. It's still suggestibility, but in this one they're casually slipping in that these are actually pretty good suggestions, and it's the intro of the song that really really gets me. It's the intro that I think they took the high road on, to be perfectly honest. The way it begins, the battle cry of a generation. First of all, just that line right there. Equating YOLO to a battle cry is hilarious, and I don't even need to explain why.
Right.
But then it continues, this life is a precious gift, so don't get too crazy, it's not worth the risk. It immediately goes right down this road. Because based just on that first line, the battle cry of a generation, this could have been their more typical, I'm sorry to say, their more typical one-dimensional type of song.
Right.
Which they have no shortage of in their previous albums, and they really have no shortage of in this album. They could have easily done it, and it would have been, alright, par for the course for The Lonely Island. But by taking that little twist, just in the very first stanza, they immediately tell you, this is not going to be what you expect. We're going to twist this into something it's not.
And as if that weren't enough, the fact that it's bookended at the end by after the passionate message and it fades out, Andy just whispers into the microphone, "You ought to look out," changing what YOLO meant.
See, those are those profound moments. They do have it, and when they hit home, they really hit home.
And this is one of those songs where they really go to that next step. I mean,
and they still have the ridiculous in there, of course, because as they go through all of the things in which you shouldn't do, it does go a little bit too far.
There's
For
a
instance,
line. There's a line that Adam Levine sings where he says, "Pull out all your teeth so you can't bite your tongue."
The most obvious of these exclamations they're going for: board your windows up. The sun is bad for your health, and always wear a straitjacket so you're safe from yourself. Which is
this is the opposite side of it. So that's the thing. Obviously, okay, if you did take the song literally, no, you probably would not be in a better place. You'd be a very socially awkward, even socially functional individual at all. Not really.
But if you take YOLO from the battle cry idea of what so many other people of our generation and younger kids would think, yeah, maybe they should be wearing straitjackets and not doing all those stupid little things that they do, and not, skipping school and having unprotected sex and doing all the stupid things that YOLO is being used as an excuse.
Yeah, if you take the profound and the ridiculous, you end up with a very happy middle ground, which makes this a perfect piece of comedic art.
And really just driving home the point that you only live once is dumb. You don't only live once. You only die once. You live every day. So the pointlessness of saying you only live once when that's not even true.
Yeah. It's. I really wish there would be a good amount of stupid teenagers out there who would just eat their hat when they heard this song.
Yes. But here's the best part. They're very popular with the younger generation. They will like this song and miss the meaning. And that is probably the biggest shame.
But I wanted to take it more positively than that. I wanted to be optimistic about it and say, well, because of this song, they could literally be changing the world for the better. And I mean, I know that's a little bit... Okay, yeah, Lonely Island's going to change the world for the better. But don't count it out. I mean, that's the whole purpose of art in general. These things affect you on a subliminal level. So even if this does affect, one of those YOLO wearing,
obey hatting,
leg right out the window of their car kind of people,
Wait, people do that?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Ride with their leg outside the car.
I've done that once. It was a bad idea.
I don't think I've done it, but I may have done it once to parody the type in which I'm questioning.
I've never done it. I didn't even know it was a thing.
Well, you're not a YOLO person. That's good.
Yes.
You should be proud of that point. Don't look so shocked.
You're not stupid.
Congratulations, Matt.
I'm not that stupid.
Matters of degree. Nice.
Moving on. Speaking of stupid. So, YOLO is a very, I dare say, powerful track. Moving on from that, we get a little bit of a break, but still something that's fairly clever, especially for Lonely Island. So the next song is called Spell It Out. And it starts out with Andy singing about his two buddies, and you know who they are. And me, let me spell it out. And then spells out a series of letters that lasts about a minute and a half.
2 minutes. It's almost a paragraph.
We'll give you that in a minute. But this is the thing. Again, the stage setter here. It's that introduction type, which is very. It's got that funk riff, which is really, really catchy. Over that, they have these. They introduce flutes, which actually did have a pretty strong prevalence in like 70s funk used for a purpose, as opposed to just funk in a club kind of thing. But the groove that was present here, it was great, and it actually changes it up because it's meant more, I think, perhaps for the music, because of course the message is just let me spell it out for you, and whatever that may be. You break down the very simple message, which just so happens to be, if you put these letters together.
I just want to go on record and say that I never looked up these lyrics. I listened to the album 3 or 4 times before I had Sarah, while in the car with me, look up the lyrics for me, because I tried to follow him spelling it.
Can't.
And it's just, you can get a few words, but then he goes so fast you lose it.
That's the joke, because in itself, what purpose would any song like that serve? Why do you have to spell? No, I would
Don't spell
get
it
that
out, just
clearer
say it.
if you said it.
But anyway, they call him dude that has sex with pigs for money, but only as a side thing right now, comma. I'm just short on cash and have irons in the fire. But in this economy, it'll have to do. My name is Lenny. What?
And then at the end,
Perfect.
people are chanting and going, huh, huh, and then it cuts out and he goes, oh, actually, that's gross. And
No, that's great.
And so,
No.
it's just that punchline. And to really go that extra mile to get to that punchline, I'm actually quite fond of in this song.
And it was musically really good on top of that, so after a while I just ignored the letters and enjoyed what was going on.
This really goes back to the introduction that I gave here. How a lot of this, again, it's about self-aggrandizing. It's about taking the artist who delivers these songs is, hey, look at me. Whatever I'm all about, well, here's what I'm about. Which is kind of just ridiculous in the end. Why don't you just entertain me? I don't like to hear what you're about. I only really care what you're about if you deliver content first and foremost. So if all they're about is what they're about, that's really, really skin deep. And, to turn that into something so goofy as, well, let me spell it out for you. It's too good. And also, I think the style is also very important, the funk style here, because it goes to show you how long this has been around. I do remember songs like this that were out in the 70s, and they were just as ridiculous then as they are now.
Right, and the idea that also when he spelled it out, though, even though it was disgusting, it was a very realistic, I have to do this because the economy's bad message is also funny.
Their face value grade A irony. There you go. That's what they do.
I mean, it's taking pot shots at the BRB L8 we can't even use words anymore. Our society just has to use acronyms and letters.
Spell it out.
It needs to have a zing to it. Otherwise, why would any popular person, use
LOL,
the language?
JK, ROFL, MAO, BYOB, BRB.
We get it, John.
STFU, RSVP.
I kind of want to punch you right now.
Stupid.
That's how big of an effect it has on me.
I know, it's really stupid, but this is stupidly hilarious.
Moving on to the next song. So, it's followed up now by another
This is kind of in the similar
grammar.
vein.
This is another grammar event.
So this one is called Semicolon. It's featuring Solange, who is the sister of Beyonce. And it starts with Solange playing a school teacher-esque character.
That's not Solange. Solange does a lot of the vocal work, but it's Maya Rudolph.
Oh, Maya Rudolph plays the teacher.
Rodolphe.
I'm reading it phonetically.
She is another former SNL.
So Maya Rudolph plays this teacher character that asks, today we're going to learn about semicolons. Then, of course, Andy Samberg's vocal comes in and goes, ooh, ooh, ooh. Yes, Lonely Island. And it's an exchange between a teacher and a student. We use semicolons every day. Oh, can you prove it? Oh, hell yeah. And then the song is them singing to prove their use of semicolons into it's hilarious lyrical construction.
Ensue is like the word of the day.
They do that. It's a very not necessarily very common, but a very typical style in a lot of hip hop to make the grandiose statement.
The first line of the song is "Get ready for a whale of a time."
Semicolon, Shamu.
Right.
That's the whole concept behind this. It's making that grand statement and then explaining where that statement comes from. They defined it. When you see me better cross the street, Frogger, then go home and write about it, Blogger. Like, it's really, yes, that's really deep and kind of shallow at the same time. I'm really enjoying the duality that they're going in here because every line is a punchline in this song.
And I want to attack this song by just my experience with it, because I was listening to this and I was thinking the entire time, I don't know if those are correct uses of semicolons. A semicolon wouldn't be my first choice, for the whole call and response dynamic. As anyone who follows my writing on the website knows, I'm a big fan of the M dash, despite that there's a lot of hesitance in the whole writing community regarding its use. I think that if you lose an M dash, it can get you out of a lot of jams.
Yes,
and that's my own 2 cents on punctuation. But yes, these were all commas in the end that made it quite funny.
And I mean, as far as the music goes for this song, it's kind of very standard backbeats. The choruses are sung by Solange, and they're still in the same vein as the verses, but she's singing them in a semi-inspirational tone. But the thing is, the whole song, yes, Steve had an experience that some of my friends have had as well. As they're describing it, you're going, well, I'm not sure that's actually how you use a semicolon. In fact, John said semicolon before. In actuality, you realize at the end of the song, Maya Rudolph comes back and they go, so we use they say, essentially, we dropped the bomb, we did it, these are semicolons, and she goes, actually, those are all colons, you all get Fs. And they're like, what? But bringing to the light this idea that grammar is still so poorly learned that people use something, are confident they're using it correctly, and then find out they're completely wrong.
And it's that whole lyrical wordplay that really gets me on this one. With lines like, we run these streets, stoplights, all eyes on me, spotlights. Just, we run these streets, it takes that really impactful, I'm awesome, and makes it a PBS explanation. I really enjoy that. I really love the turn of phrase that they use in this one.
Well, I am going to play a little bit of devil's advocate in this song, because we're getting a little bit more toward the face value side of the album here. Because I think when it comes to lyrical wordplay, this is around the point where I was sort of starting to question some of their uses, because it's all based on listing at that point, or a lot of it is. A lot of it is based on just sort of finding, all right, well, what are more things we can, use as colons? That's that they have one shtick, they have one idea, and now let's kind of make a song around it. So up until now, I think we've had a lot of really, really clever wordplay surrounding one idea, or in some of these cases in the album, multiple ideas. This one was just a little bit shallow for me. I still found it a good gag, especially considering my experience with it, and I'm like, I don't think those are really semicolons. And of course, yeah, I find out in the end, of course they weren't. They were colons. And if you find the lyrics on this site, it will be written out correctly as colons.
Yes.
And it does make sense when you think of a clarification for a certain thing, which is an appropriate use for a colon. But that's really it. That's really the end of the song. So that's the end of the level, the depth, what I take away for it. So it was enjoyable to me, but that's about it. Just kind of enjoyable. Like, that's good.
But I think that's the only purpose it was supposed to serve.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you're saying this
I'm still going to argue that its job is to also devalue the kind of one-liners that get spouted out as being grand, but really are kind of vague and not vague, but kind of unimpactful.
No,
really
I will agree with you on that point.
Yeah,
they don't do. We got this game on lock. Toy chest. You're too big for your clothes. Boy's vest. Like it really does a good job of doing that.
It's got some clever wordplay there. When you take, it's more like it is a series of. It is a list first and foremost, but then within that list, they did find clever wordplay within that. So yeah, there's definitely the skill is still present. I think that's time to move on to the interludes. This is nearly the halfway point of this album, or effectively the halfway point of this album, because this next track, Where Brooklyn At, and parenthesis interlude, it serves as kind of a perfect interlude. It's a comedic interlude. It has the same weight pretty much as the intro. Kind of odd, but it still was humorous, I guess, in a very, very basic sense. The track is essentially just this guy comes up and just says, "Where Brooklyn at?" He's doing that call out, which, as you said, this is basically a play on what you might find at a lot of concerts. The whole
cat call.
Yeah, the cat call. Where Brooklyn at? Yeah, Puerto Rico, ho, yeah, that kind of thing. Queens.
And just
it actually sticks in your head, and I almost don't like that it does.
But that's the point. It's supposed to show you how ridiculous these things are in any other environment except a concert. And why are they acceptable there? It's because it's the heat of the moment thing. But here, some guy pulls up to a group having a conversation.
It's some old guy. Where Brooklyn at? What about Queens? Where Brooklyn at?
It's just, this is really, this almost strikes me as the kind of thing
sense. It doesn't. Where Brooklyn at? Okay, it's over there. That's the answer. Not as a rousing, cheering, yeah, Brooklyn. Okay, you should be proud you're from Brooklyn, but it's just moronic when you start doing things like that.
I feel like at the end of the day, it's just a joke on trolling.
Yeah. No, there you go. That's a great
exactly
idea.
Really, that's it.
There's not much more to it than that, honestly.
Okay, we were trolled. That's pretty good. I'll give him that they trolled us.
Well, he trolled them.
Yeah.
Said character trolled them. Because after a while they just looked at each other
trolled.
like, no, I'm pretty sure this guy's crazy right now.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking
That's
about
the exact
we
quote,
were
I
trolled.
believe.
Yeah. I still don't know if it had much purpose in the album, per se. It feels like it could have functioned better in like an album of a legit comedy album without music.
I think it was just meant to break the flow. I mean, they typically do a lot more interludes than they did on this album. They only had...
You know what
one.
it reminded me of? It reminded me of the kind of shorts that you'd find back in the old Tenacious D shorts, like the original shorts when they were like a brand new band. Mm-hmm. And they just have these silly little things in the middle of... even just in their first album, on the Tenacious D album, they had little comedic bits between all their songs. And they are pretty much what you'd call comedic rock and roll. They're comedic music, same category really, although they really try to go heavier on the music first because they are playing their own instruments and everything. But the point is they needed that comedic touch to sort of make them a nice selling point. So they would intersperse these little bits. And the bits sometimes didn't really mean much. They had one called Drive Through, where they just pull up from a drive-through and it's just the ridiculous banter of Cage and JB. That's it.
Right.
It really, really worked, I think. In this album, though, it's only just one right here in the middle, and it seems to have less to do with what they do as a band because there's not so much personality where they're really like painting the personalities of Andy Samberg's character.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
But it's not about that. It's about the fact that
JB and KG they were characters too.
Yes, well, they're characters too. I mean, some of the absurdity in the later songs is about their characters, but this is more, I think, for them going, well, we're also writers. We've been writing for SNL for ages. We've written movies. Let's write a little sketch because they're sketch comedians too. Besides just musicians, they're also improv stars and sketch comedians.
Yeah, I'm not going to harp on this.
Yeah.
It is just an interlude at the end of the day.
And I think that's all it's supposed to be.
But just saying, use of... It's a little bit of a throw-off. for me. It's an empty track. That's kind of what it is.
Supposed
I'm not really gonna like.
That's why it's so quick, though.
No, It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be anything.
They've
more...
done this before in other albums.
Well, still, that's the thing. A lot of these tracks would function really, really well, maybe as singles, right? So the way I figure when you're releasing a comedy album, in order to have flow and whatnot, I do need to kind of harp on this point just a bit.
But half of these songs, possibly more, were sketches. They were actually singles. They were done as one little bit of a larger comedy ensemble, and they were not done in the framework of a actual album. They were done as a framework as a joke. So you're arguing that they worked well on SNL to some extent.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I like to see, a creative touch like outside the framework of SNL, especially if it's a character an actor who's gone on to, do more things and whatnot. But, I don't know. It's a minor point, but maybe I'll come back to it.
Very minor point at this point, because it's a 30-second clip on the whole.
Well,
no,
it's still where I start...
It speaks to the larger album.
Maybe
and
it was...
continuity.
Exactly. It's about continuity, and that's where I want to go on to the next track here, because you do start being concerned with continuity at a certain point here. At least I was feeling that in this album. So, next track.
So moving on to track 9, it's called You've Got the Look. It's featuring Hugh Jackman and Kristen Wiig, also another Saturday Night Live star. And it's essentially another club anthem kind of sounding song. But this one takes jabs at fashion, both for women and for men. And
this is about the sexual desire of women. This is that song describing that perfect woman. It fits in that sort of a framework. What I do enjoy about this song is that this one actually feels like it goes.
It's not about
deep.
a perfect
I
woman.
want to disagree with
Yeah,
that.
No.
I
It
really
has the
do.
vibe. It has the vibe to me of that song. You're describing that girl that you want.
No, I disagree with
I
that.
disagree
See, that's the thing.
completely.
I knew there was going to be a split here with this album. Almost perfectly. Hell, if the interlude served any purpose, it was to divide up our opinions, because we've been pretty gung-ho about the first half. But at least just in what I see from the song, first of all, there's that whole, she got that titty hanging out. That's kind of the most important line when you think about it, because it's that idealizing ridiculous fashions, per se. It's more about that. It's not about the perfect girl or anything. It's more about
the
that.
ridiculous
Who
fashion.
is she to do that?
I'm not saying the song is about the perfect girl. I'm describing the framework of the music as the song talking about the perfect girl. Not the content of the lyrics, but the actual way the song presents itself.
But I think it's more about the action than the girl. That's my thing. It's more about her action of, well, to be blunt, having that one titty hanging out. It's, again, that's the ridiculousness. That's where this goes toward the comedic side, because who would do that? That's not a fashion that is really common. But they're making up this fashion as
well, it's been
a
done
nice excuse
before.
to be edgy.
No, well, actually, it's been done before.
Oh, you're going to cite me an example?
Yes, Nicki Minaj at the MTV Music Awards 2 or 3 years ago did exactly that. She had a skin-tight dress with one boob hanging out and a pasty on. Which, something like that...
And a lot of actresses and actors have actually done that in mockery.
But this time, I don't think a lot. Because this time I'm inclined to call that esoteric. That's esoteric for fashion's sake.
Well,
don't tell me it's not. If you walk on the streets of New York and you see
Well,
that,
no,
then
but it's not.
I'll concede defeat here.
It's not. You would see something like that a lot more probably in the burlesque community. Pasties are very common in the burlesque community.
But that's a different setting.
Right.
Yeah, but this is You Got the Look. This is in the vein of that, ooh, girl on the street I passed by,
Right, and that's the joke, is that it was Nicki Minaj at an award show who did that. And they're singing about, like, it's commonplace. That's the gag. It
also goes on. It goes on to talk about a strong choice or just a mistake. Is fashion really what she's all about, intentionally, or does she even know it's out?
That's it. That is the core of the song.
That is the actual core of the song. It's the very middle of it.
The chorus.
The very, very
middle.
middle.
It's actually a bridge, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
that's
but
the bridge.
Lyrically, it is the very middle of the song. And Jackman actually goes on, girl, you're the center of attention. Tell me, is that good or bad? Because if it's not on purpose, it would be really sad.
Yeah, no, this track did kind of almost broach the profound, perhaps not so much to the extreme, but I did gather that from that one stanza there, that bridge. I mean, that's kind of it's not ridiculous inherently, because did she notice it? There are a lot of there's a lot of anyone who was walking around with fashions that it might just be from personality. It might not really be anything like I'm going out there purposely to be edgy.
Yeah.
Often that's not the case. So it's just asking that question in general. So I really think it's just a play off fashion. I really think that's the essence.
Absolutely.
Of it.
And then the second half of the song is trying to put it, because the whole first half of the song is very much on the girl.
Yeah,
the second half.
No, I'm going to divide
it's
it
double
up here.
standards.
It's divided even further than that. The first third is about, yes, that's fashionably edgy, and you got it, and you flaunt it, and you go for it. And then it goes on to, okay, are you sure? Is this what you want to do, or do you even know you're doing it? Like, is this a fashion statement or a fashion faux pas? That was the line.
Do you even know?
But it really the third part, it really sums up a whole different idea, and that's when Kristen Wiig goes, and it's like, wait a second, why are we always talking about the ladies here? Boy, you got that look. Roll up in the party with one ball out, and everyone goes, oh no.
Double standard.
There you go. Very much obviously the double standard. And she's even, no, sorry, that was gross. I apologize. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. It goes through
I shouldn't have asked you to do that.
Yes.
I'm humiliated. Yeah.
Why did you do that to me? I mean, it goes through over-sexualization, fashion faux pas, and the double standard. It's got 3 parts to it.
I admit that on the face of it, well, no, not in the face of it, especially if you look at it that way, it is pretty strong. It was a little, maybe it felt like it was kind of a been there, done that to me kind of feel. It's not that they're not covering a lot of bases, but they're covering around bases that, yeah, all right, double standards between men and women. Yeah, surprise. Like, that's not like comedically astute. It doesn't have that lasting effect on me. That's a really, really old trick, I think. Concluding the track with, guy does something that the woman tried to do, and didn't quite have the same effect. That's just, it feels a little old to me.
I think it's a gag, and I mean, gags that have been done
it's
before
an old
can
gag,
be fun. But gags that have been done before can still be funny. To me.
I still laugh at whoopee cushions once in a while, specifically, and most recently, the Muppet movie.
Well, everyone knows that fart jokes are timeless. That's not even for questioning.
We'll get there. We're not there yet.
Okay, fine.
Spoilers. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all there is. I mean,
I'm in the middle on this track. I mean, I don't think it was brilliant.
I don't think it was brilliant.
It wasn't brilliant. It was clever and it was fun.
I feel like here they were trying to reach for something deeper than they haven't on the rest of the album, and in a lot of their other music, they don't go for some deep meaning, and I don't think they can do it very well yet. But I feel like they tried. They really tried for something a little bit more than just.
All right, I see the trying.
Commentary.
I see the trying in this particular track. I do.
And I personally enjoy that they featured Hugh Jackman to sing on it. I thought he added a certain attitude to the choruses that I enjoyed very much.
All right, I'm not. Yeah, Hugh Jackman. I'll admit that was an interesting choice. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, brilliant. No, clever. Questionable, depending on taste.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to probably the worst song on the record, at least for me. It's definitely one of the worst. This is a song called I'm a Hustler, and then in parentheses, song, ? It's sort of an interlude, sort of a song. It was a very flamboyant character, male, I assume.
Talking about hustling and
being a
busting
hustler
and
with a
that.
back voice, being very deep. It was not very funny. It was kind of awkward.
The funniest part about the song was the title itself. Yeah. I'm a Hustler, song? Like, it almost, like, that kind of gives it away that this is a throwaway, almost.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think it's really that, although that's how I would almost read the title. I think it's just that search for a title, The I'm a Hustler song, I guess. It's as good as any. But the rest, you're right. It's kind of confusing. It's kind of stupid. It does demean the idea of the hustler, which which I do support. I support the demeaning of the hustler because they could use some demeaning if they exist at all, quote unquote, or if they're just people who consider themselves hustlers, and that's even worse. But my problem with this is that it really had no art to it. And again, I don't think I said at the very beginning that I don't think they're high art, and I don't think they have any disillusions about going out there as if, oh, The Lonely Island is going to be a high art project. No, I know that. But it was the equivalent of just going, to use you as an example, nah, I'm Matt Storm, I talk like this. It's the equivalent of that. They're doing this to the hustler
absolutely.
ideology. Is that's middle school.
It's just mockery.
It's mockery. Yeah,
It's not like the idea of them taking.
that's weak to me though. If you're gonna, as they've shown us, if you're gonna attack the group, which I would totally welcome, go attack them, because they are a ridiculous group, the hustlers, quote unquote. But really, if you're gonna do it, go bold, subvert. That would be the way to do it.
No, yeah, this is them.
It would affect me more.
This is them just making a funny voice that sounds somewhat flamboyant, quote unquote, gay, I guess. Although it doesn't even come across.
Effeminate. That's it.
Yeah,
Effeminate,
it's
yes.
mostly
Effeminate,
just
'cause,
effeminate.
Again, like earlier tracks, it's another Hustler is another one of those machismo figures, right? So to just spin it the other way around, the way I'd figure it, this is status quo for them. For Lonely Island, but maybe falling short. You're right. Falling short.
This is falling short because this isn't even status quo.
But you see what I mean here. When the more on the nose they get, or the more face value they get, the weaker they are, in my opinion.
Most of the time, but not always. There are moments in their face value where I still find them entertaining.
There's one or two issues, but there's the specific reasons behind it. The problem is there's not much else to look at.
Well, because also this song, the lyrics weren't cleverly constructed. There was no rhyme or reason to it, really. It was just a poorly executed song that wasn't very fun.
We're overanalyzing this song. Way too much. This song should not even take this much discussion.
I thought we overanalyzed You've Got the Look, in my opinion.
This
but
is worse than You've Got the Look.
I'm very decided on my opinions on this song.
Not You've Got the Look. Where Brooklyn at. This is just a bad little thing.
No, both, actually.
Then moving on to Spring Break Anthem, which is the 11th track on the record.
This is my takes I'm talking.
So Spring Break Anthem is a song that, at the face value, very much in the beginning seems like a Spring Break Anthem. It's about doing shots, demeaning women, being a dude bro, all the stuff that's terrible.
On the musical side of things, because I don't want to let that get out of sight here, I don't think it was any accident. They really went toward an Eminem vibe with this particular song, and a couple more later as well. I think there's a reason for choosing that, because again, that pursues blatant observation. Actually, you were the one, Matt, that mentioned that very astutely that false machismo and Eminem go hand in hand, which
more or less,
is pretty much
he's kind
right
of
in line
clear out
with
of
this.
that homophobia too, but
So,
that which comes across here too.
So that's going to rate very, very highly in my opinions on this album, is when you use music to achieve something strong, and this kind of did it. But this thing, that was an observation I had that sounded like Eminem. It's very consistent for them, except perhaps the Eminem part, because they're not often, pursuing Eminem styling specifically. They're more going for like a general club trance hip hop thing. But I do kind of like that they're making fun of a particular group here, a group that we might know very, very well as Staten Islanders, the macho type. They're jerks. Their lives revolves around going around and getting suntans and going to the shore and living the high life, at least as they see it. But this twists that idea, that concept, into something that's not traditionally macho, which is, well, men marrying men.
So yeah, essentially,
Traditionally.
the overarch of the song is it compares over-sexualized machoism to homosexuality. And it's taking this thing where often the joke is made that homophobic people are actually closeted homosexuals, and it's taking it in that direction. It starts with singing about spring break and just peppering in the marry a man line, and then by the whole second half of the song is only about the process of getting married, but between two men.
I also think it's a joke on the ridiculousness of it all. How,
Yes.
Of course, gay marriage really has nothing to do with machismo. You can have... There are very, very macho gay people out there. So that could be what they're doing. Just kind of mixing in the personalities together. Like, all right, well, this is just a very macho person who goes to Cancun and some of the crazier lines in there. Oh, doing coke off of girls' asses and things like that. Ridiculous things that, of course, you hear from crazy spring breaks. And when you add up all these lines together, you're thinking like, oh god, I know the type. I totally know this type. And then it has really just one punchline, and that's marry a man. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. I didn't expect that this guy would be gay. So it's playing off of perception, I think. How perceptions are kind of are ridiculous in itself. You can you can be macho and be gay at the same time. That's it. You can.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't...
I think it goes a further step, and that is to basically call out all of what society labels the douchebag and say, grow the hell up. Because, yeah, we're going to make fun of you, and you really do sound like a moron. Because every single one of the lines that is not taken from the perspective of marrying really does say stupid things in stupid ways. Pranks when you're passed out, jokes about roofies, making girls kiss, marry a man. Giant sombreros, show us your titties, creatine shakes, marry a man.
No, literally, if you take every other line... It's right out of any spring break story you could think of. There's nothing special about anything else. I mean, it's all stupid Cancun spring break stories. So that's the thing here. I feel like... I think this is exactly as simple as I made it out to be. If they were going any further with this, by simply saying, by explaining how stupid the type, as it were, is, or... It's funny, because that's actually the YOLO type, isn't it? That's the YOLO type. We're kind of going back on ourselves here, or they're going back on themselves.
This is specifically all this talk about homosexuality, marrying a man, talking about picking up flowers, choosing the menu.
One step at a time.
This is specifically to challenge their masculinity and the fact that they fear so strongly about how people perceive their masculinity.
Yeah, okay, I guess I'll go with that, because this is...
Yeah.
I mean...
That's pretty much exactly what the song is going for. Mm.
You're not a man unless you're pounding pussy and shooting beers down your throat and everything like that. No, that's bullshit. That's what this song is completely about.
Yeah,
you're not a man. You're not a man at all. You're just being a little child. So here, this is us saying, yeah,
these men are being men. They're getting married and furthering their lives.
Yeah,
They're being men.
You want to be a man? Make love to another man.
But that's the thing. No. Here's the thing. But in the same exact track, they're the men doing this. Those are the men. So the way I perceive it is within the context of the song. All they've done is just added another trait to this character, and the trait is just simply that he's gay, which is almost irrelevant.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a challenge to their sexuality and to the persona they project.
I will agree with that. I think that's the point.
I
really do think that's the point.
This song is not for us. This song is for spring breakers and Jersey Shore people.
And it's challenging them.
Challenging them to think differently about their lifestyle and who they accept within their social circle.
Forget that.
Yeah.
I think it's just to piss them off. And
that
I kind of like that.
Sure.
Yeah, that follows. All right, well, I guess we kind of got that down.
Now
Although here, I'll give it. I'll give it this.
I like that song.
No, I got that. I didn't say I didn't like it. I still thought this was one-dimensional, but I think it was more on the successful side of one-dimensional.
Right.
But the more I think about it now, I do think it is easy to take the song the wrong way, especially when you consider that looked at a different way, you could almost see that final line as, oh, I was stupid on spring break. I went down there and I accidentally got married to a man. Because I was drunk. Like, you could almost see it that way if you didn't read every single line. So, taken fleetingly, this might not have that profound effect. Because people aren't going to read into this as deeply
but
as
I
we
don't
are.
think... I disagree with Steve. I disagree with John. I don't think it's for the spring breakers. It's for the people who hate the spring breakers. And they're going to notice those lines.
And I'm going to say it's both. Piss off one group and make the others feel better about themselves personally. Why can't it do both?
Yeah.
And I look at it and I'm like, I'm happy it does both.
Well, it is another layer.
That's shallow. That's a shallow way to look at it from my perspective. But you know what? I'm kind of happy it pisses them off.
Okay, moving forward.
I have one more little thing about this. It's kind of like that line from YOLO, the battle cry of a generation. I like how this is called Spring Break Anthem because it's a play on how everything's got to be an anthem now.
Yeah.
Everything. Just write your own music. I don't need more anthems.
Okay. So now we hit track 12, which actually I thought was a very clever setup to a song-wide joke. So this is called I Run New York. It starts with the character having a press conference from the perspective of a mayor claiming that a lot of rap stars say they run New York. But he, in fact, actually runs the city of New York.
And I want to interject that this is another song that has direct influence from Eminem stylings.
And so it's featuring Billy Joe of Green Day, and he helps sing the choruses. And it's essentially the first...
Oh, really?
The first two verses are about how he actually runs New York. He runs the marathon, he gets no respect, he has trouble with sanitation, and what it takes to run the city.
It's a song about street cred, which has been done ad nauseum, and you're right, Eminem has done his own share of them, Real Slim Shady and all that. This is somebody who doesn't have street cred, he has credentials. This is the guy who's actually running the city.
Call it cred.
Yes, but it's actually got some pretty good lines too in it with... In this lake of bureaucratic bullshit, it's a miracle I don't drown. I mean, I like it. It feels like a smart person instead of the more uneducated idea you tend to get with these street cred songs.
This really did grow on me. It seemed, I mean, it's playing off that whole self-aggrandizing thing, but it really does take on a new meaning when you see the object of self-aggrandizement being someone who really does have a lot to worry, a lot of shit on their plate, and who has more shit on their plate than the mayor of New York. Of course, we all like to badmouth the mayor of New York here and there, and sometimes we give him credit. But of course, at the end of the day, it's a very difficult job, no matter what you feel about him.
Excuse me for trying to help you. They won't be satisfied until I'm locked up in Bellevue. I guess they don't tell you this job sucks dick. I run New York, and it feels like shit. Yeah, I'm sure every mayor and governor and most politicians who have had to run an organization like New York City or larger has thought those same exact words. You just have to put up with a lot of BS and a lot of hectic stuff and trying to please everybody, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Positions of power just suck.
Because New York is full of many, many different groups, all of which have their specific needs. So, yeah, it's amazing how this is, as a comedy song, maybe, of course, we are New Yorkers, and Andy Samberg, he's a New Yorker, too. I mean, they're all from SNL crowd, they're all New Yorker ilk. But, so, it's kind of specific in that regard. You kind of have to know what New York is like a little bit in order to get this. But, hopefully anyone should know how difficult any position of power is.
Right, and then
I know we're taking this really seriously for a comedic song, but maybe it does hit a little bit home, considering, what New York has gone through over the years.
Yes.
We know about.
But there's still a punchline, and it comes in the third verse, when he talks about how he has to don chainmail and a samurai sword, go beneath the street, and fight giant fire-breathing rats. Because if he doesn't, who the hell is going to do that?
Because on the equinox, a hell gate springs, releasing hounds wreathed in the blood of kings.
That is a pretty good line right there.
No one even knows. They just think I'm a dork. But I still killed those fucking dogs because I run New York.
And that's the punchline. Two verses of relatively serious, this is the crap you have to deal with to run a city, capped with, but I also have to kill giant demon monsters because that's my job.
I'm not just the mayor, I'm the guardian of the city.
York. Yeah.
Which is like a whole nother Highlander kind of a level that he's building into this song. Which, the punchline is pretty darn good for the song.
It is pretty good. Yeah, no, I definitely warmed up to this song. It's pretty solid because it's a funny concept.
And it's not a
seeing the mayor, especially, considering Bloomberg has been our mayor for the last 14 years, and you couldn't get any more of a kind of just a businessman. He's got the businessman look. He doesn't look like he would possibly be, fighting any kind of demon. But to imagine him in that position, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and that's the idea.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next track, track 13, I Don't Give a Honk. So this song, is exclaimed as not a Lonely Island track. It's the Not Honking Around crew. This song is another one that they were trying something and it just falls short. There's no real joke or punchline here other than they're replacing curse words with the word honk, and that they're not cursing but still bringing up situations in which you would substitute cursing for honks and rhyming words with the word honk.
And that's a big problem I have with this song, because I like clever lyrical play, obviously. It's really bad in this song. The forcing of rhyming with the word honk just falls flat for me, because it's very unnatural to my ear, trying to say, I give out candy like Willy Wonk.
But I'm also going to bring up that there are a lot of rap songs that rhyme stupid things constantly to make it work. Let's look at the entire catalog of Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit, and rhyming the same word with the same word, or making up words, or changing how they're pronounced to rhyme it.
That does make it good. Does not make it good at all.
No, I get that,
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Is this is representing that ilk of hip hop that they just force rhymes and force lyrics that
it's lazy
don't make
writing.
Sense. Yes.
So yes, you're right. I guess it's kind of a, but I don't think that's the point of the song. I think the point is more the cursing. The point is the substitute of the word.
Yes.
The substitution. That's the point.
That's what I'll agree with. And it's kind of weird because if you've been listening, we've been cursing a lot because they've been cursing a lot. This is maybe the only actual full song that doesn't have a curse word in it on the entire album.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, they're trying, again, if you're going to do satire, you sort of have to stay fairly close to the source material, and what better way to do that is to bring in the same attitude that requires the same kind of potty mouth, to put it lightly. But, yeah, this after so many songs, they do kind of turn that around, and I do appreciate them for that, at least, by just tackling another, or attacking another facet of the community that puts out this material. You know, why do you need to curse in every single song? There's no reason.
But
so it does attack it on that level. It's just not, again, that's another one-dimensional kind of thing. That's the single shtick.
It's a single shtick that's not executed in a clever or creative way, and the music behind it is not also executed in a clever or creative way. And I think that's the biggest problem. Is that it's a one-dimensional thing at face value that also has nothing else going for it. And that's where it falls short.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to track 14, Three-Way, The Golden Rule.
So this is featuring Justin Timberlake and Lady Gaga. It's the characters that Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake have cultivated that we mentioned in the intro. The two guys who sang Dick in a Box and also did on the second record Turtleneck and Chain, a song called Mother Lover, about that special Mother's Day. This is their third track in this trilogy of these characters called Three-Way, The Golden Rule.
And it's got the same style, which, to be honest, I mean, considering you're saying third track in the trilogy.
Yep.
It's story.
It's
third track in the story, because who knows whether they're
considering they're spread out so far, it actually is pretty impressive. They've managed to keep the style so close together, because I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, this is almost reminiscent. Because we're getting them so far apart. But they're very consistent with this. This is that perfect duality of Samberg and Timberlake, which, again, it's not the entirety, or anywhere close to the entirety of Lonely Island, but when you hear it, it's almost relieving. It's back to their essence, their core.
Yeah, it is comforting. It is an old friend. And because of the style of music is very similar to the previous two tracks. And
the style of music, period, because it's got those 80s/90s soul riffs that almost make you nostalgic just in and of themselves. It's got... And it's hard to describe exactly what soul means to me as a listener.
No,
because I'm not a big fan. But
for me, it's really the low Andy and the high Justin playing off of one another. I love the way that their voices are so different from one another, and the tete-a-tete, the back and forth that they do when they sing together is just really, really... It's just fun going back and forth between the two.
And also I like how in these songs they link them together. Like this song starts with... Oh, by the way, your mom says hi, Jinx. referencing Mother Lover, which was the last track that they had done as these two characters, which is always just fun. But the song's plot and premise is essentially the two of them are going on a date, they show up at the same place, realize they're both going to say to the same girl, who's voiced by Lady Gaga and sung as Lady Gaga. And
it has that overblown, sexualized idea from the 80s, the early 90s, that was present in a lot of music videos and soulish music. And
we're everyday guys, but we're tantamount to porn stars, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's got that kind of, I think they're going a little bit too far in what they're doing. And some of the lines with...
Yeah, you're meant to feel kind of awkward. In
Right.
that SNL sketch way, which again, back to the essence.
Which is what they've done in the previous two. It's just a continuation of the idea. And I think adding in Lady Gaga was a good choice, because her voice... she doesn't get many lines, but she really does accent it very well.
She punctuates certain moments.
Punctuates very well.
And so the song is essentially them showing up and her going, well, she wants to freak with both of them, and they discuss, well, we're best friends, and no, we normally don't. It's okay in a three-way. It's not gay in a three-way, because of the golden rule.
Yeah, and that's why I want to read this hook, because the hook, I think, actually is the best part of the song, and perhaps one of the most memorable musically on the album. I know it's not like a major point here, but, well, a good hook for a song like this kind of is major within that context.
Right.
And it's just, it's okay when it's in a three-way. It's not gay when it's in a three-way. With a honey in the middle, there's some leeway. The area's gray in a 1-2-3 way. It's catchy. It's really catchy. And it's well written, especially for a hook. Not overtly complex, necessarily, but the basic wordplay it fits. It fits. It really does.
Yeah, and it's very singable.
Not even very. It's instantly recognizable and singable. You'll get it on your second repetition. On the second time that chorus comes around, the hook comes around, you got it. You're going to be grooving along.
Yeah. So this is one of those cases where I'm not going to really bother analyzing this because
it's just a good song.
Yeah, that's
it's just a fun, good song.
Wow, how often does it come that we just leave it at that? It's a good song. It's good.
Yep.
It's good. It's good. Comedy helps. That's the thing. I guess, within the soul context, it would be a very basic, average. I know. Actually, I take that back. Based on this hook, I think it would be a popular soul song. Although, the lyrics are a little bit more memorable when you consider that there's some ridiculousness there.
Yes, of course.
That's it.
Moving on to track 14 is called Meet the Crew, and it's very simply what it is. This is a song where they introduce all of the members of the crew, starting with the three members of Lonely Island as the main, and then characters that are made up after that each of the respective band members plays, from I think it's Fat Bob to Tiny.
The rich guy who's got a very dark sense of humor, to Tiny, whose name is ironic. He's 12 feet tall, and his life is hard. Hard, not difficult, hard. It is...
Piccolo Pete, Sick Eric, Smooth Guy, Creepy Zeke, Boring Steven, although I take offense to that. There are many Stevens in the world who've done very great things. They're very interesting individuals. Thank you very much.
Continue reading the list.
The whole song is a satire of the call-out crew song. And even at the end, it's like one-third of the crew was able to call in.
They've listed 20 names, and it's only one-third of the crew. And, I have a favorite. I know John, I think his favorite was Tiny. But my favorite was the crew member named Greg, who's speaking through his cell phone. He's like, my name is Greg. I had to fly home. It's my mom's birthday. It's just the silliness of this
I have
song.
no favorite. They made fun of Stevens. They've lost me forever. I will never forgive them.
I'm sorry. Would you like a hand?
Flight of the Conchords did it, too. You remember that?
Okay.
Yes.
Remember that? Steve. Did Steve tell you that? I don't like this anti-Steve thing. Really dumb.
So we'll continue a review of the album without Steve.
This is almost another interlude. It's just a lot longer than their previous interludes, because it's not this song itself is really, it's a running gag, but it's really unimportant.
Well, I'm gonna say from the gag perspective, all right, I'll cave. I liked it a little bit because it from the gag. I almost kind of want a little bit more sketch comedy in here, maybe. Maybe that's the thing that's a little bit lacking in here. There's definitely some other songs here which I wouldn't really equate them to sketches. It's really kind of cramming a sketch into a song, where this is really just a sketch. This is introduce all these random characters. Hey, my crew. It's up with my crew. I got them all in the house here. It's so absurd, and again, it's so familiar because I know the type, and maybe that's the thing that gets me most about Lonely Island is when I think back to people I know that I almost want to roll my eyes at, and also look at them like, wow, you are a character, and they are all about making fun of the characters.
But I think that's the point. That's what they're going for, is they want to make you roll your eyes and have that very visceral reaction.
And I think that's a point of success for them.
Yes.
I like the song because it's funny, but I just don't think it's actually any... I just don't...
I'll say that. It serves... I'll count it along with maybe... whatchamacallit, the interlude, Where Brooklyn At.
Yeah.
I'll count it with that as kind of a comedic interlude service.
And
like, yes, there is a backbeat
point
here, but yeah, it serves the same point.
Well, yeah.
The backbeat is irrelevant because of what it serves.
This is all about the characters in the story, and that's it. There's nothing to really analyze beyond, it's just a story, and it's supposed to be funny. That's it.
And now we're going to move on to...
The worst song on the album.
I don't even want to say it, almost.
Okay. The song is called I Fucked My Aunt. It's featuring T-Pain. T-Pain originally featured in one of the Lonely Island's arguably most popular song they've ever written, called I'm on a Boat, which was just... It was all about that Cribs feel of the gaudy, overblown nature. Well, this song, featuring T-Pain, is called I Fucked My Aunt, is awkward, disjointed, the humor misses the mark, it's not funny.
Here's what it is. Each verse is a story that just ends with something completely different, where he goes, I had sex with my aunt. And then he repeats it a few times. And then the next verse is another one of the characters going, oh, this is another story. And then, coincidentally, I had sex with her sister. And then the third verse is the same thing ad nauseum. If you had an actual joke punchline to the story you were working on originally, might have been funny. No comedy really here.
I feel this was written just to make shit really awkward the next time you see your aunt. I mean, it's really kind of annoying in that regard because they keep harping on it. They keep repeating it. The chorus is literally just shit.
Like, oh, man.
Shit, I fucked my aunt. And that's all I'm going to say in this particular thing. And that's like, it's disturbing, and I think that's the point. Obviously, it's the point. I mean, I don't think they really were like, drop the ball on this necessarily. I think it's that they were going for the type of narrative that you often see in a lot of I can't even think of a genre where this kind of thing would actually occur, but in music in general, you will occasionally come up with narratives that try to get across an embarrassing story, right? You're almost meant to sit there and sympathize. Of course, the punchline is, well, wow, what a ridiculous way to end. Your punchline is disturbing. But disturbing is not inherently funny, and I think this really proves that rule.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the level in which it's supposed to work is simply making fun of that narrative. Because when you're telling an embarrassing story through the medium of music, I in general, don't like it to begin with because it's odd. Well, why would you tell it through music? I immediately recognize that. I'm not really able to enjoy the story on the same level, perhaps, because I know that if it's coming straight from the artist, and if it's evident that it comes straight from the artist, that's weird. Why would you say it? If you're embarrassed, how could you be truly embarrassed about it if you actually told it? I know that might be reading into this a little bit too deeply, but it's what I pick up from this. I pick the same thing up from this track as I would from any other song with that style of narrative.
I agree, and they did not make it funny because of the premise is really messed up and the jokes weren't good.
Let's be fair. We didn't find it funny. Someone might. I agree with you guys that it's embarrassing and awkward.
That's like on the level of incest humor. Like, how far can you go with it?
No, of course, and I agree. And there's a level to how far you can go with humor. I'm just saying that I don't think they sat there and said, let's write this thing that's not funny. Like, they were trying to hit a note that clearly it does not match our sense of humor. However, the follow-up song, After I Fucked My Aunt, takes us into a simple state of silliness.
There are a lot more toward the end of this album. There's a lot more of these one shots here, which they're going for either one thing and it either hits or it misses. This one, We Are a Crowd. It's a very, very blandly sung, at least when you consider the crowd that is singing the lyrics of this song. It's a very bland delivery of what they do together as a group. It is the groupthink, the everything that we think about right now, and if you're not one of us, well, then you're not part of the song.
We are together.
Yeah.
We are not alone.
It's almost a cult.
We are cheering the
It's the
thing
hive
together.
mind.
It's the cult.
We are at the event that we are really at.
Was that the line?
Not that far and esoteric.
No,
it's
that would have
really,
been funny if that was the line. You should have submitted that.
It's very monotone, but it's all the ladies say yeah, yeah. All the guys say crowd, yeah. Like that silly, not really paying attention, just being loud and there. That's what the song is about, and it really does work as
it works, but yeah,
it's loud and there.
Again, well, maybe the word of today is not. I think it's one-dimensional. I think that's the word of today, because this just goes for that, and that's it. It takes that style of song, again, the group thing, which almost goes back to the kindergarten thing, because in the first track you have kindergarten do something stupid because we told you to. So it's that suggestibility that I think this is kind of answering back to. Yeah. Only this is more from the crowd's perspective and not from the artist's lyrics perspective.
Right.
This is the, almost a DJ's perspective also. That whole rouse the crowd kind of thing in an almost ridiculous kind of way. The whole job of an MC, for instance, is just to rouse. He needs to be convincing if he's going to be a good MC. He needs to get up there and effectively rouse people and make them do exactly what he wants them to do.
Yeah.
Kind of strange that club music revolves around that kind of that oneness, which is almost eerie when you think about it. Maybe that's a little prudish of me, but they seem to agree because they're making fun of it too.
That definitely seems to be the case.
Yes.
Yeah. This one's a very simple song.
Alright, we're coming to the end of the album now. We only got a few tracks left. The next song is called The Compliments.
This song,
So this song first...
I really enjoy.
So this is featuring Too Short, or $2
It's too short. It's too short.
Anyway, it's funny. So the song is essentially... It starts with Too Short singing about how, it's hard to find a guy, so ladies listen up. Pay attention while these guys compliment each other. And so they start complimenting each other. And it actually does start out with each band member complimenting a different band member in a very sweet and touching way in the first verse.
Like, daw.
Yeah.
It's not even aw. It's got a D in front of it. It is hitting, that is such a nice thing. Good thing we're friends. Kind of a level.
Being nice to your friends? What is that?
I know.
What is that? I never heard of that.
It's kind of weird. So
apparently people do that.
That's a thing?
But you got puppy dog eyes, and he'll make you a brunch. That's how good of a guy he is. And it does a great job of really doing...
showing these characters build up each other. And
the opposite of the I'm awesome song.
Yeah,
I am awesome. You should love me kind of a song. This is a great guy. You should get to know him, and you should be your friend.
But the joke starts to kick in when you get to the second bridge where Too Short sings, and he talks about how when they asked him to do the song...
When they pitched me this song, they were kind of vague, but I said, fuck it, I'm in, because they said I'd get paid. One thing's for sure, these dudes are weird motherfuckers, so sit back and listen. Watch them compliment each other.
And so now it's a second verse of compliments, but this time it gets a little more lewd. There's more sexual references and some other things. It's still fairly complimentary. It's very complimentary, but they start getting more graphic about the compliments of each other.
It's a little too personal. He's got a great penis. It is awesome and golden, and you will look upon it and be like, "Oh, that's pretty good."
Yeah, they're pretty graphic with this, but I mean, I still think, well,
and it starts to break the fourth wall a bit.
Yeah,
and then of course it gets to the final part with Too Short, where he pretty much decides that they're hot on each other, and while they're with you ladies, they'll probably be thinking of each other.
I think if this had one lasting effect on me, it was that joke on borrowing rappers.
Yeah.
Not raptors. You don't want to borrow.
I don't want to borrow a raptor.
Yeah. But borrowing rappers. You see this in so many songs. It's become kind of a trope at this point. Like, all right, our bridge, we're going to bring in a really, really popular rapper, and he's gonna kind of contribute to our song, and it will therefore make us more popular or somehow promote the song somehow. But in this particular instance, they're incorporating him, and he is weirded out by the song because, of course, that is the disconnect. Because in many of these cases, I will cite many instances where I don't think that a rapper belongs in a particular song. It's like, well, I was kind of on board with it, and then
we had that problem with Drake in that Beyonce song that he was in.
Right, and then they go down that road, and it's just like, really, that was not needed. It wasn't needed for this particular medium, and this is just a complete play on that, Rapper enters in, and even he knows he's not really... He doesn't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
He's weirded out by it. He would rather leave.
But he's going to get paid.
I'm going to get paid anyway, so...
Moving on
that's the joke.
Moving on to track 19, we have We Need Love. So this is the second performance of Guy 1 and Guy 2. They were featured on the first album singing We Love Sports, or We Like Sports.
We love sports.
We love sports. And
we don't care who knows.
Sprots?
So this is Guy 1 and Guy 2 are characters created that are the everyman, but they're completely monotone and expressionless. And this is a song about not wanting to be promiscuous and not wanting to sleep with anyone. It's that they need love, and they don't want meaningless sex. It's the exact opposite of the old hip-hop aesthetic.
Music first here. It's so early 90s, this backbeat. It sounds like it was made on a Casio. It's a demo tape, essentially, like the most inexperienced rappers that you could possibly find.
Which is the premise of Guy 1 and Guy 2. These are, as a recurring persona, that's what they're going for. These are everyday men who really are kind of just normal people who, in their own mind, are much more epic there. These guys are satisfying women, per their own words, constantly, all the time. They're tired of sex. They don't want just sex. They don't care if you're attractive or anything like that. They want a relationship now. But it's from the perspective of that guy who, in social media and everyday entertainment magazines, is not that guy. He is not promiscuous. He is not getting all of the sex.
It almost reminds me of the demo tapes that you would find back in like these 80s era 80s era demo tapes. They've actually resurfaced right now in the YouTube generation, and you can find them, and it's that same thing, like the straight-laced 40-year-old gentleman in a suit and tie with 80s era glasses. I'm going to try and make my foray in the rap community. It's almost that. But of course mixed with all the silly one-liners for there. I think this actually has a little bit more power for me, because almost to the same extent that We Are a Crowd did, because of the plain delivery. They're not even really rapping. They're
speaking.
They're speaking
in unison.
So in unison and in meter. There's no flow there, because there's no change up in the style in which they're speaking. It's all very, very, very even. So that obviously points to inexperience. But it's certain little quotes here that I think is another talent, or another positive behind what Lonely Island does. Ridiculous quotes like this: "I'm a butt man, and I like boobs. Put them together, and we like you." What? But I laugh. I mean, it's funny because it's because that's
I'm a freak in bed. How about you, Guy 2? Yes, me too. That rhyming, that deliberation of yes, I am a freak in bed, but so monotone, so matter-factually.
You're starting to make me realize here, actually, that I think the real success behind this is the fact that it has pacing.
Yeah.
Which is what we've been lacking throughout the album.
It has pacing, and it's deadpan. It's completely deadpan.
Yeah, but it almost is it's a kind of a change-up in this sort of bleak, second half of album period here. It changes up the vibe. We had almost like song after song of exploring the machismo, and seeing how many different ways we can make fun of that. This kind of goes the opposite way around. Instead of exploring the machismo, well, let's explore the ineffectual.
Yeah, the ineffectual affectionate.
It becomes
that works.
It's really it seems like a conglomerate of the worst possible lines you can use to get laid, coupled with the confidence that everybody should really have in their life.
Yeah. To be so blatantly blunt about what they want.
I wish I was this confident, but so much better at talking to women.
And even though it almost seems silly to go back to it, I do want to cite music as a strong proponent of this track. I mean, I think it's a strong factor here.
I'm feeling
the choice is perfect.
It's got that familiar.
Pairs well with the way they're singing.
Yeah, and it's familiar the same way the Golden Rule was. It was harken back to their earlier stuff, and it's that same sort of level. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's just a good song for me.
Yep.
Moving on to the final track of the record. So this is called Perfect Saturday. And it's mostly a narrative song. What really hooks this song is the great
music.
The music, this great funk sound that starts pretty much from the moment the song begins.
I'm a sucker for funk, and we had a couple instances of funk earlier on this album, but I mean here just the bass, that steady drum, and alongside it the strings. I'm sorry, but I'm such a sucker for that. Once you layer strings on top of a funk riff, it literally you have me. That's it.
Yep.
That is almost as easy as it. It's a pretty easy job, actually. But, and people are kind of critical for funk, but for no reason, because it's so simple. But you know what? What works. And it almost made it to the point that I didn't care what they were saying. Little did I know there was actually a story going along there, because I was so into the groove. There is a story, and it's basically these, it's kind of a party story. The progression of a party.
So it's almost the antithesis of the Guy 1 and Guy 2 to a point as far as character goes. These are two characters who are describing their perfect Saturday and how they met with these fine freaks the night before, and they're going to see them again, see another set of fine freaks tonight, and they're really pumped for it, and they're going to smoke some pot and then get ready for their day. They're going to take a shower,
put on my polo shirt and wash my balls, and it's going to be pretty awesome.
And then the doorbell rings. They think it's the freaks early, but no, it's a friend.
No, it's an acquaintance.
It's an acquaintance who shows up needing to hit the head, needing to use the bathroom, and the dialogue between them about how he can he needs to use it, and they say no, and they want him to go, and then he can hold it, and then of course the fine freaks show up. But at this point, the character who has to go to the bathroom has already crapped his pants and stunk up the apartment. Freaks run. Characters are upset but claim they're not. Lead the character who crapped himself down a dark hallway and kill him.
No. Not just that. It's the last line he utters, which is, "You're my only friend." Bang! This is not the first time they've done it. They did it on their previous albums as well. Just that one guy that you wish was removed from your life.
But then, as if that weren't enough in the song fades out, fades up again, and Akiva comes to say, "You think you were going to get out of this album without a fart joke, motherfuckers? You think that we're different now that we've got some money?" And pretty much does the typical rap sign-off. We're big, motherfucker. You need us. We did it in your face. Here's a fart joke.
Toot.
Yeah.
And it was... I loved it as an ending.
It truly is a conclusion for a Lonely Island record. You couldn't really have closed it any more perfectly.
It's the only conclusion they could have
If you're going to do the most typical rap, R&B, hip-hop album of ever... That's how it had to end. There's no other way to end it. It has to do that. Cat Call, we'll be back. 2014. Yeah, we're going to bring it down and it's going to be awesome and you're going to love us even more so. But with their Lonely Island slant of, yeah, fart joke.
If there was any fault to this final track, I feel like maybe it could have used a little bit more pacing in the build-up. Perhaps it had sort of that Weird Al Yankovic style of kind of rambling on, which is maybe why I was zoning out to the music, because the build-up of the story wasn't quite as engaging, but it was a great punchline. It really, really was.
Yeah.
A great conclusion.
And I mean that end bit about, you think we can't do a fart joke. I mean him saying this is Lonely Island it's the best way to end the record, because it's true. They're Lonely Island. Essentially all their humor amounts to a fart joke.
Yeah.
That's
I hate to
really
say it because there's a lot of attempts at depth here. They really did try to do social commentary, but they're just so comedians, it's almost like they couldn't get out of their way and go a little more serious. Which, it didn't work all the time. Now, the album itself is very funny. From front to back, I really do enjoy almost every song. And with just removing dramatic intro, what's it called? Where Brooklyn At and I'm a Hustler, there's still 17 tracks on this album. That's, for me to say most, it's like 15 songs on here I'd laugh at. That's really a very good comedy anything. That means it's keeping me engaged and I'm enjoying it. Now, upon repetition, you have to enjoy it. And that's where you get into the musical aspect of a comedy music album. Since it is, in fact, musical, that means I'm going to want to hear it over and over and over again. That's a song. The best part of this album is that none of it really sticks around too long where I get tired of it. There's a few exceptions because I Don't Give a Honk really does drag by the end of it. I'm not a fan of that song. And F My Aunt, because I'm tired of cursing during that song, it's just meh. It's junk. It's disgusting. And it's really just, it's a bad joke.
It's not even really parodying anything because I really don't know. I mean, aside from the narrative thing I was talking about,
what are they going
anything
for?
With that kind of punchline, like even really, really bad hip-hop stars don't go down that particular route. It's awkward, and almost universally is agreed upon that that's an awkward subject.
But you're talking 15 out of 17 songs that deliver punchlines. And I've already listened to this album like 5 or 6 times. It's got repetition for me. I'm starting to skip here and there because I don't want to hear certain jokes, but I'm going back to it. It's got a little too much text at times, though. This is a wall of text. There isn't a gap more than 5 seconds that they're not singing over, and that, from a musical standpoint, is a bit of a problem. It's hip-hop rap. I can take repetition, but I want to breathe every once in a while. I want to hear some exposition on the instrumentation. It's just something I need because it's going to propel me forward. I don't want to have to be listening to this as just a joke. I want to be listening to this with some music on top of it. For that, it brings it back down for me. On the flip side, the words are really good. There's a lot of back and forth on this album for me. It's kind of weird for that. But all said and done, it does a great job of doing what it's supposed to do, and that's making me laugh. Ain't world changing. Isn't even quite a 4, but I'll definitely put it on the high 3s. This is a 3.75 album. For what it is, it's excellent, and in general, it's still pretty good as music.
Yeah. Alright. Let's see here. I am going to be very, very strict with this in rating this as a music comedy album. That's why we brought it on. We're our music first and foremost. Adding the comedy element is just, it's just sort of a tricky art. It hasn't always been in existence, although there is kind of a comedic element to music anyway. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, so stay tuned. But just taking this album right here and the whole concept of what Lonely Island does. Because I did mention earlier, they have sort of a one-track shtick. It's sort of interesting that I chose that choice of words, because this album here has sort of shticks within their greater shtick. That's kind of what they do, and it occurs on a track-by-track basis. So, there's a little gag there. But their shtick as a group, I pretty much summed it up in the beginning, is, making fun of these styles of pop music. The really... primarily the heavy machismo-based stuff. I think even if you just look at this album, the amount of tracks that deal with that subject really does give this album a definable theme, but at the same time, that's the band's theme. There's nothing really special about this album in that regard. The whole band's theme is that stuff. If you look back to their previous work, you go to the track like I'm on a Boat, well, that's the same concept which we see explored here. That's that ridiculous materialism involved in being macho and having something so iconic, perhaps? I mean, that's not the word, but so in your face as having a yacht, you know, a really, really tricked out yacht with all of your bitches lined up.
Or I'm the boss with all the fantastical things that he does, because he's the boss, he can do them.
Exactly. It's, and I do really, it really is just as I said in the beginning. You know, sometimes I go back in this stuff when I give my intro as to where I, end up here at my wrap-up. But I think this is almost exactly the way I laid it out. There's not much has changed over the course of this album, in discussing it further. I appreciate, just as I said in the beginning, I appreciate what they do as comedians. It makes you think on just that one level. Pop can be really, really dumb sometimes, really suggestible, and it doesn't often contribute to society's betterment, as if it makes any pretense that it does. But still, I support them for bringing this to the public eye. In that regard, I need to just look at this particular album and see how much more special it is. I think maybe it's a little repetitive. Maybe it's messages that still need to be repetitive, because obviously society doesn't seem like it's changing anywhere yet. But it still is a little bit repetitive. The subject of machismo has been attacked, and I don't think it's been attacked here in an especially creative way when you look at certain tracks here. I do like tracks like Go Kindergarten, which brings it so much to the attention that it's even... In fact, I think that's a case where it succeeds. It goes back to that, you know, go all or go home. If you're gonna attack something, then go really, really strong. Don't just go halvesies on it. Go Kindergarten is a really good example of that. It goes all the way. It reduces suggestibility to get stupid. I kind of love that. It's a hilarious concept. Looking at certain other tracks here, I think YOLO is profound. We've already gone through that. Diaper Money is a lot stronger than I originally made it out to be. And then I think you have a lot of tracks that just sort of broach the topic, not to the best of their ability. Spring Break Anthem, kinda. I Run New York, more so. I don't know. I don't think this is something I will be going back to a lot. Maybe specific tracks, but looking at the comedy element, I was not roaring throughout this album. I think that pacing is really, really, really what they needed to keep The Lonely Island a running thing. I mean, I do want to hear more albums from them, and I would like them to progressively improve. But at this rate, they might be running the risk of getting stagnant as a group, because people will think of them as a one-trick pony. I still think they're very creative within that framework, but, you know, really push the edges of those framework. That's where this album succeeded most to me. So when you take that into account, I think I'm exactly where John is at. 3.75 seems like a very fair... it's not quite a 4. 4 would probably be something that I feel was a more unified product. This had too many ebbs and flows to it.
I mean, you guys kind of covered all the bases. The highs were really high, but the lows were rock bottom. So, you know, the in-between, you know, and the in-between stuff kind of coasted. I think there were some songs I favored more than you guys, but, I mean, we tend to not always be on the same on everything. I mean, unanimously, Go Kindergarten and YOLO are the two strongest tracks on the record. And I also think Semicolon is up there with the two of them. Even though I know it's kind of face value, I still think it's very clever, especially in the punchline delivery at the end.
It's also kind of telling that Go Kindergarten and YOLO is the most socially commentary of the songs. This one actually does talk about real life stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note, I do want to spend just about...
Well, I haven't even given my rating yet.
Oh, excuse me. I forgot that.
So I'd like to finish up. And we actually ran really long on this episode. I didn't expect to do that with Lonely
There were 20
Island.
tracks, to be fair.
But, so I think that on the whole, I mean, it's not that different from what they've done in the past. The first album and second album also kind of ebb and flowed the same way. There were highs, there were lows. There were interludes I didn't like, interludes I did like. There are no songs I really hated except for the T-Pain song that I don't even want to mention the title of anymore because I'm tired of talking about it, and Hustler. I think those songs really just fell super short. I don't give a honk. I still am entertained by a little bit, but mostly just because of its stupidness, not because there's any skill involved in that song, really. That said, though, I do like it, and I think I'm pretty much in the same place. I wanted to rate it higher, but when it comes down to it, a lot of it falls at a very face value. Whereas in the past, I feel like there might have been a little bit more creativity, at least on Turtleneck and Chain, the second album. Whereas this fell a little shorter. I feel like Turtleneck and Chain, if we were to have rated it, would have rated higher. It would have definitely broached 4 or broke it.
I do want to interject that it might have been partially because of the wow factor involved with them starting as a group, which is why I said that there might be some fear of them, stagnating. I really don't want them to. I do want them to progress, but that's the thing. When you got tracks like I'm Gonna Vote, it's just like, oh, I love the subject that they're attacking right now. This is just so needed to be parodied and ripped apart.
Yeah.
Third album in, up to you.
So, on that note, I'm locking it into 3.75 also. That said, if you like comedy, this overall rating is listen to it. It's still don't miss it, because it's still funny, and it'll still make you laugh. It's definitely worth checking out, and I'm quite a fan of Andy Samberg. And honestly, I want to see a comedy written for Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake, or maybe a comedy musical even, or something. I just think that the two of them play very well together, and I could see them doing a lot of great work in the future.
As a closing thought, I think two things could have really made this album better. More filled out music. For instance, music that just makes you more engaged and stops, as John said, that wall of text feel that you get when it's just like, I'm basically getting a sketch written out here. And then the other thing is...
more Justin Timberlake.
Which
is probably the only time
that's
I'll
not
ever
a
say
bad
that.
one.
It's not bad.
It's not a bad one, because it would, maybe bring you back to the essence. Although I still want them to push away. But I was going to say more multifaceted satire.
Yeah, more stuff like YOLO.
Go to the next level.
More stuff like YOLO and Go Kindergarten, and less stuff like I Don't Give a Honk and I Fucked My Aunt.
That's exactly
pretty much the base level.
That's exactly it.
And I'm realizing now, as we've talked about it, to broach the topic of comedy and music is so broad. We would need a much shorter album to really get into a detail.
This could be an intro. I do want to discuss the subject of satire, as music satire specifically, because
it's primarily used in the form of a comedic style. It's not going to be a major component of any sort of comedy album, and it's not always comedy, but satire is something that's very difficult to do without coming off as kind of tropey. We have so many tropes, and a lot of people can look up that word, and a trope is something that, because we use it often, something that gets repeated ad nauseum, that it becomes sort of mainstream in its idea. Say a guy with a samurai sword who's white in an Asian film, that's the guy who's going to kick ass everywhere. Or there's a big guy named Tiny. That's a trope that was used in this album. Satire is something a little bit darker. Not darker, a little bit deeper.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Satire, a trope. I was a little confused by what you started to say, because I thought it was that, types of satire can be a trope. And that's probably true, although I think good satire inherently, or maybe satire period, just by the definition of the word, should be something that is fairly outside the box. It should, by definition, maybe not even be tropey at all. It should really make you think about something in a way that really hasn't been presented before. Maybe that's just my particular way of viewing satire, but it's definitely how I see the best satire that's ever been done.
Well, I also feel like comedy music has different levels and different ranges between something like this, where the comedy is at the forefront, but it doesn't really go hand in hand with the music, whereas some other bands make more of a career of being clever, and they're not out and out laugh out loud funny, like I'm led to lead towards Jonathan Colton. Like, we talked at length very early in the podcast's life cycle about when he got ripped off by Glee, but the song that he was ripped off on was his very folk version of Baby Got Back, which is funny, but in a different way, because it's clever. He took something that's very, the original song is very in your face and very very much hip hop and turn it into a folk song, but still keeping the lyrics exactly as they were.
Well, also the thing about satire is it's very tricky to kind of... If you have... Satire is based on specific things. It's based on a specific focus of what you're really trying to bring to the table as ridiculous or as just quirky and trying to present it again in an alternate way. If you have a shtick that you're basing your satire around, maybe that does lend itself to being tropes, and that's really what I base most of my concern about today's album, which is really such a shame because I really, really love making fun of that particular group and that type of music. I think that Lonely Island was a brilliant idea when it began, and I want them to perpetuate that because clearly satire has a goal to it, and I'm not While I don't think that Andy Samberg and his crew are going up there as to say we're going to, dismantle the music industry from these absurdities that are kind of ruining culture. I don't think that's really up there in his mission statement, but it's got to be somewhere in their mind as artists.
But you could look at a satire, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, as a trope that goes the extra distance to create meaning and content besides delivering a punchline.
Yes, that's ideally what you'd hope for.
Like, say a group of robots singing about life. I mean, we've done a lot of bands. That does create meaning besides and context. Steam Powered Giraffe, we've talked about a bunch of bands and musicians that kind of do that sort of thing. It is a satire. It is a joke. May not always be funny.
It kind of is satire, but I would wonder what they're really making fun of. I mean, maybe they're making fun of course, the musical style. That's the thing. In this case of Steam Powered Giraffe, their music first, their comedy second. I wouldn't rate them as a comedy music album, but
I would even say that The Heist had an actual comedy song on it in Jimmy Iovine, which was a satire. And maybe it's just me, but I laughed during that song every single time I listened to it.
And I wouldn't call that a satire. At the same, that's it's an autobiography essentially.
Yeah,
that's what happened. So in those particular events,
I'd say Thrift Shop would be more comedy than Jimmy Iovine was anyway.
Actually, yes, Thrift Shop is a very, very good example of satire, and yeah, it's okay to kind of look at this within the lens of music that isn't always intended for comedy, but if it has the side effect of comedy, well, great. And Thrift Shop is a pretty good example of that because the satire there is making fun of the materialism. In fact, there's not really that much separation between what Malcolm Moore was doing and what Lonely Island is doing here today. It's making fun of that materialization, how really gold chains, all that bling and all that stuff. Do you really need that? No, I'm perfectly content to go to a thrift shop and get my grandfather's hand-me-downs. That's all I need. But I'm going to sing the song in the same style, the same manner, as one would who's really talking up the high life. That's satire. That's perfect. That's a perfect example of satire. You can find this in things that aren't music. You can find it just in... I think satire has that inherent irony to it. Always. It has to, kind of, in order to function as satire. Such as... from the literature standpoint, there's that Jonathan Swift, that short novel about how, novelette or more of an essay really on the subject of eating babies as a solution to solve famine, in Ireland and England at the time. It was really, really astute for its era, and it kind of still holds up. It's a hilarious thing to read. So, yeah, satire can be done in many forms. From the musical standpoint, it's just, again, it's tricky. Although, just on that Jonathan Swift topic, could he have continually written on that particular subject and done that forever and forever and forever? Probably not. It was just that. It was an essay. It was a single subject. If you were going to bank off that, then you need to really brush up your chops, or you have to have a lot to say. A plethora of subjects. I almost get the sense that The Lonely Island has a vague idea
what to do and
of the
going.
plethora and the various subjects, but it always kind of seems to come back to the same thing in the end.
It's almost like they watch Entertainment Tonight and make fun of that.
Yeah.
But they don't really try to figure out why is as funny as it is.
Well, they're also a band rooted very much in pop culture and making fun of pop and hip-hop. And the themes in hip-hop and pop, on a base level, tend to be very repetitive. Hence, their material is reflecting that.
Plus, they have a healthy dashing of the slapstick style. Not, anvils falling on heads, but it does have a very animated kind of a feel to it. All of their music, it's got that kind of punch to the face that you kind of are looking for.
That's a curious point, Matt, because you mentioned that it's based off of that style of music that's repetitive, and that's why their satire reflects being repetitive. And what I just posed to them before is, well, maybe you can't do that based on a particular subject.
They may have to branch out.
But that's interesting, because if you haven't changed, not that satire always has to change, but I feel like it's always a little bit of the subliminal goal there. But if you haven't changed the concept, then maybe you can satire it forever. But either that, or people don't care enough to really respond to the satire. People who go after that type of music will still go after that type of music, and they'll still eat up all that crap. Tell me to get stupid. I don't know. I'll get stupid. I'll get stupid right there on stage. I'll get my friend to do it too. They'll eat it up. They won't even. Granted, not so literally, but in effect, they will.
What do you want me to do with my finger? Okay, give me a knife. I'll cut it right off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's jump off a bridge theory there.
There you go.
Yes. So, I think that we can get way more into
this is just an intro, and this is specifically on satire right here. Comedy music does not have to just be satire, for
sometimes
instance.
It's just...
Weird Al Yankovic didn't do satire in every single song, and sometimes it was absurdity for the sake of absurdity.
Yeah. I think that this is a strong introduction to where we want to go with comedy music, but I think we need more time to really get into the heart of it.
Yeah, these album reviews, so long.
They are dry.
Well, we gotta pick shorter...
No, they're long.
shorter track albums. 20 was a lot to tackle.
That doesn't always help, though.
No. Orca.
Orca took us an hour and a half to finish also, and that was a half hour long.
Right. And it was 4 pieces.
Anyway, to steer us in the direction towards the end zone, since the Super Bowl was just the other day, yes, I'm putting more timestamps on this. Steve, why don't you take us into Fantasyland of the Wonderful Spam?
That was a really boring Super Bowl.
Of the wonderful spam. Spam.
It was one of the first play. It's kind of ridiculous.
Can someone please explain the post like I'm 4? Heh.
By?
Sure, I could.
Wolfgang Rangel.
Wow, it almost sounds real.
Wolfgang Rangel?
Sure,
it sounds like a Power Ranger.
Explain the post?
Yeah, explain the post like I'm 4, yes.
Wasn't that on a picture?
Actually, I think it was yet again on our no podcast this week.
Oh, okay.
Well,
there's no podcast this week. How much more simplified can I get? Really, I need help with this.
John, don't try and start explaining it. Just go into what your album is for next week.
Next week, we're revisiting somebody who I haven't heard in about a decade. Against Me, with their newest album, which I believe came out only a few weeks ago, Transgender... what's that word? Transgender Dysphoria Blues.
You didn't get your album title right.
No, Transgender Dysphoria Blues.
Oh,
okay, all right. Well, we'll see that.
They are I've heard a lot of different descriptions. They're an alt-rock indie band.
Okay. I'm sure it'll be something.
Matt's supposed to be the guy that goes back to the 90s, not you.
Indie,
no, I'm only going back to band.
Indie isn't always inherently 90s. In fact, it has a stronger following in the 2000s.
Then again, this band did form in 1997.
Anyway.
Well,
whatever. I've never heard of them, so
nice
I guess
try, man.
There's
really?
one for everybody. Nope, I've never heard them before.
That's surprising.
Anyway.
I do know them. I think I have a couple of their albums, although I haven't listened to them in ages and have no idea if it's still my taste.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
I saw this. I was intrigued. It's been a while, and I saw they were actually getting good reviews.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely dive into that next week.
Oh, I'll sit with it for a week as we
It
do.
was nice to attack something a little lighter this week. We'll definitely jump back to comedy music in later this year, because there are definitely some other albums I want to touch on.
I hope to get back to this topic sooner. I haven't even broached the 10 minutes cannot do it justice.
No, definitely not. We will definitely approach this more, or maybe even discuss it in an article. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. Yes. On that note, and wrapping up...
First off, R.I.P. Douglas Richardson. I will miss you, good neighbor of my life.
Also, R.I.P. Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was a fantastic actor and a good person and New Yorker from what I've heard. I know a lot of people who've had local, wonderful experiences with him. It's a shame to lose him. On that extremely depressing note, music is life, and life is good.
What was that?